Good time then to speak to the opposition. Andrew Griffith is here with me in the studio, the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. Good morning to you. What do you make of Reform's efforts to attract more women?
Well, good morning. Look, anyone in the business of politics wants to appeal to the broadest possible constituency. I mean, I'm proud of my party. We've got a female leader at the moment. I think she'd, like most, rail against the idea that issues are defined entirely by your sex. But Kemi, as it happens, has done a great job historically on things like defending the rights of women to have single-sex spaces. She was talking about these issues way before anybody else was, before any other party in the UK. So, look, I think at the end of the day, people live in family units, bread and butter issues, you know, some of the things we'll talk about today, you know, the level of tax on people in this country, the difficulty of getting on the housing ladder, the affordability of their mortgages. At the end of the day, I think broad-based parties need to have broad-based appeal. We'll
get onto that stuff in a second, but just to finish off on Reform, we heard about Sarah Poachin there, former Conservative councillor. Andrea Jenkins, of course, a former Conservative, is now one of Reform's mayors. Is there a risk that you are going to lose a lot of your base to Reform as they start to have these more open debates about things like banning the burqa potentially and other contentious issues?
I'm not complacent, but I'd very much hope that we are certainly involved in those debates. We're going through a process of policy renewal ourselves as a party. I've actually got new members and former members rejoining my party locally because they like what some of the things that Kemi's been talking about, that serious focus on the hard, honest truths that politicians actually for many generations haven't always been honest about, and being willing to make tough decisions. People know that there's some tough decisions coming down the track on things like welfare reform.
Is there a risk,
We're talking about those.
Is there a risk that you get pulled into those issues that others perceive as being dog whistle politics just to get attention where it's previously been lacking?
Well, I don't think we're going to do that. I mean, if you look at what we're talking about, what I talk about in business and trade, but what Kemi's been talking about as leader, it's those hard economic issues. It's about the balance between tax and spend in society. It's about the state of the public finances. It's how do you properly reform welfare, not you know, glib or dog whistle, but how do you properly reform welfare where millions of people in this country are paid potentially the whole of their working lives without ever getting a job, being able to get into the workforce, the access they have to public housing, to housing benefit. You know, these are really big things.
Well,
these aren't small issues.
That did balloon under the tail end.
It did, and I'm very honest. I mean, I've said this has been going on over generations. I think there's quite a lot of things that have got a bit worse under this government, but a lot of these issues, completely, as you say, have been going on for far too long. We have not, as a nation, balanced our books, in many cases, for decades, right? That you can't continue to run a competitive economy on that basis. What we should be hearing from the Chancellor in the Mansion House speech tonight are much bigger strokes and levers than I think she's going to pull. I think
So making it easier for people to get higher multiples of their salary in terms of a mortgage, you support that, do you?
I do support that. And when I was City Minister, we looked at doing exactly that and started putting some of these processes in train. It's just not right that there's some algorithm sitting in the Bank of England, a bit too cautious, doesn't take full account of people's on-time rental payments, often for many years. And that, as well as the big shortage in supply, is one of the reasons why young people are finding it hard.
But you and I are both old enough to remember the financial crisis of 2008 into 2009, and that was all to do, both in the UK and in the States, of people borrowing more than they could afford.
Well, a little bit. I mean, a lot of that was what was happening in...
A lot of that customers of Northern Rock who are borrowing 110, 115% of the value of a property on multiples of their salary. And then what happened when the market crashed? They're left in negative equity for years.
Yeah, correct. And you've got to look at that in the context of the whole mortgage market. So the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction. I've been talking about this for a very long period of time. 2008 called out some challenges, and you saw that with Northern Rock, which was one particular lending practice. The reason Northern Rock actually went bust was because of its borrowing model. It wasn't...
they over-leveraged themselves.
They over-leveraged themselves. It wasn't just their customers, most of whom would have been able to earn out those mortgages over time. Post-2008, the whole regulatory establishment was too cautious. You know, we're many years after that now, and it is really having a problem with people getting onto the housing ladder. So I support that. The mortgage guarantee scheme, which the Chancellor is apparently going to extend, we put in place. That's a good scheme. It does help people. It's not the only answer to housing, because if you're not building homes, as they're not in London, for example, then obviously that's going to have an impact as well.
Yeah, the London average house price is around 11 times the average salary. No one's ever going to be able to borrow that amount, are they? So you say, quite rightly, building more homes, which you failed to do as a government, and the current government says they want to build 1.5 million by the end of the Parliament. We will wait to see on that score. But the real issue, isn't it, aside from house building, is that wages have not kept pace with house prices for a long, long time now.
Well, it's all of those things, actually. Yeah. So, yes, you're right.
What would you do in that regard, then? What would you do to help people keep more of the money that they earn and perhaps put it towards where they live?
Well, it's about the level of taxation overall in society. It's about a lot of young people have additional student debt more than ever before. It's also about the level of immigration. If you take a fixed pot of housing in the southeast, and almost all of the immigration in the country, or the population growth has happened here in the overcrowded southeast of England, and then you have, and this has been different under the Labour mayor, a Labour mayor that, because of his desire for social engineering, has not built enough private homes in London, and the number of housing starts in the first half of this year was only 4,000 properties, right? That wouldn't be enough for your Sky newsroom to accommodate. It's just not enough homes. And so you've got to pull on all of those things. Better access to mortgages for those that can afford them, better real wage growth, not from always importing labour from overseas, good high-paying jobs by cutting red tape. The government is currently pushing through, last night in Parliament, a 300-page red tape bill on employment. It's just going to reduce the number of opportunities for young people to get jobs in the first place. So there's lots of different parts of that issue.
Many would see it as the right level of protections for employees, so unscrupulous employers can't take advantage of them, though.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, for what it's worth. I mean, we've had a long balance between the rights of employees, quite rightly, and the rights of employers. Tony Blair, socialist, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, a socialist, they never saw fit to reopen that balance. We've got this very dogmatic government, Angela Rayner, coming along and saying 300 pages straight back to the 1970s. I genuinely think that's the wrong thing at any time.
Just to finish off on this, under the Conservatives, the protections for employers were extended to 2 years. So if you work in a job, you can be gotten rid of in that first year, no questions asked. You extended that gap to 2 years, which favoured the employer versus the employee. So people have to work for 2 years before they've got any protections at all.
Well, it's not true about any protections at all, but some of
they had previously.
Some of those rights, you're quite correct, have to be earned over time. When an employer takes a chance on somebody, and remember, we want people to get into jobs. If you over-regulate employers...
So it's fine after 23 months for someone to be sacked with no questions asked?
Well, that's not a fair reflection of employment law. We don't have time to go through that. But, of course, all of your protections of contract remain. All of the protections for those with protected characteristics remain. But some rights, you're quite right, some rights of being an employee, not all, most of them start on day one, but some rights have to be earned over time. And that is a balance. And it's a balance that had endured for a significant period of time. At a time, we need more jobs. Unemployment has risen in every month of this government. It's not a coincidence. We need more jobs. There are 9 million people of working age in this country, either on welfare or looking for jobs. 1 million of them are young people who've never had a chance at a job. So if they're sitting there watching this, you know, they'll rightly say, just give me a job. Don't you politicians be worrying too much about 300 pages of red tape. I just want my shot.
Andrew Griffith, thank you very much indeed.